Welcome to the California Housing and Community Development Training Series. Today's session is titled Procurement and Crosscutting Requirements. This training will provide an overview of the required contract provisions. Then, we will focus on Section 3 of the HCD Act, minority and women-owned business enterprises, as well as the Davis-Bacon and related acts. And lastly, we will briefly review other federally required provisions. Contracts funded in whole or in part with CDBG CV funds must include the following 12 contract provisions that address compliance with Executive Order 11,375, Equal Employment Opportunity, compliance with Copeland Anti-Kickback Act, compliance with Davis-Bacon Act, compliance with Contract Work Hours and Safety Standards Act, compliance with Byrd Anti-Lobbying Amendment, compliance with Clean Air Act and Section 6002 of the Solid Waste Disposal Act, compliance with MeBee-WeBee contracting opportunities, compliance with debarment and suspension requirements, provisions regarding contract legal remedies for breach of contract, provisions regarding right to inventions, provisions regarding domestic preferences in procurement, and finally, prohibition on telecommunications and video surveillance services or equipment. Section 3 of the Housing and Community Development Act requires recipients of CDBG CV funds to direct employment, training, and contracting opportunities to low-income persons and businesses that hire low-income persons. This requirement applies to residential rehabilitation and new construction, as well as other public construction contracts that exceed $200,000, such as roads, community centers, and homeless facilities. To demonstrate compliance, CDBG CV recipients must develop a Section 3 plan, incorporate Section 3 requirements into bid documents and contracts, and monitor contractors' progress toward meeting Section 3 goals, which are 25% of total labor hours for Section 3 workers and 5% of total labor hours for targeted Section 3 workers. Recipients of CDBG CV funds are required to take all necessary affirmative steps to assure that minority-owned and women-owned business enterprises are used when procuring for any goods and services to be paid in whole or in part with CDBG CV funds. To demonstrate compliance, recipients must place MeBee-WeBee businesses on solicitation lists as potential sources, ensure MeBee-WeBees are solicited as potential sources, and divide deliverables into smaller tasks when economically feasible to permit MeBee-WeBees maximum participation. And lastly, require contractors to take affirmative steps to subcontract with MeBee-WeBees. The Davis-Bacon Act requires contractors to pay laborers prevailing wages. The Contract Work Hours and Safety Standards Act requires contractors to pay laborers 1.5 times their hourly pay for hours worked in excess of 40 hours per week. The Copeland Anti-Kickback Act prohibits contractors from inducing any employee to give up any part of their compensation. Grantees must ensure that all covered bid documents and contracts include the Davis-Bacon and other labor standards clauses and wage determinations. Collect and review weekly certified payroll records to ensure contractors are paying prevailing wages. Identify potential violations and enforce corrective actions if necessary. Executive Order 11,375 prohibits contractors from discriminating against any employee or applicant for employment because of race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or national origin. Debarment and suspension requirements prohibit the award of a contract to any parties that are debarred, suspended, or otherwise ineligible to participate in federal programs. Provisions regarding legal remedies for breach of contract that address administrative, contractual, or legal remedies in instances where contractors violate or breach contract terms and provide for such sanctions and penalties as appropriate. The Byrd Anti-Lobbying Amendment requires contractors to certify that they will not use CDBG CV funds to pay any person or organization for influencing or attempting to influence any agency, member of Congress, or any other officer in connection with obtaining any federal contract. All contracts must comply with the following 4 requirements. Executive Order 11,375, Equal Employment Opportunity, or EEO, Copeland Anti-Kickback Act, Minority and Women-Owned Business Enterprise Requirements, or MIBI-WIBI, and Debarment and Suspension Requirements. Contracts greater than $2,000 must comply with the Davis-Bacon Act. Contracts greater than $10,000 must include clauses for termination for cause and convenience. Contracts greater than $100,000 must comply with the Contract Work Hours and Safety Standards Act, as well as the Byrd Anti-Lobbying Amendment. Contracts greater than $150,000 must comply with the Clean Air Act and the Federal Water Pollution Control Act. Contracts greater than $200,000 must comply with the Section 3 of the HCD Act. Contracts greater than $250,000 must contain clauses addressing administrative and legal remedies for violation or breach of contract. So now, let's test your knowledge. Your agency must procure for construction services to rehabilitate a public facility to be used as a COVID-19 testing and vaccine site. The contract is estimated to be $10,000, and the lowest responsible contractor submitted a proposal for $9,500. Which provisions must be included in the contract? The answers are provided on the next slide. Here are the answers. How did you do? A contract in the amount of $9,500 must contain the provisions for the Davis-Bacon Act, Minority and Women-Owned Businesses, Equal Employment Opportunity, Debarment and Suspension, and the Copeland Anti-Kickback Act. The procurement standards are located in the Uniform Administrative Requirements at 2 CFR Part 200, Subpart D. In addition, Appendix 2 contains guidance for key contract provisions that should be included based on the scope of the project and value of the contract. Thank you for attending this California Housing and Community Development training session on procurement and cross-cutting requirements. If you have any further questions, please contact your grant administrator.